This campaign in 2013, we had hardly any support in Europe for granting GSP status to Pakistan. It was the member of European Parliament who were united in our support from all the political parties. And I have to visit Belgium and European countries 3-4 times. And we were very lucky to achieve this status in 2013. And I'm very pleased to say that Pakistan has benefited, Lord Hammond, more than $20 billion over the last 7-8 years. And then there was another issue, another challenge. Again, when 665 members of European Parliament backed the motion asking for the suspension of GSP plus status for Pakistan. So when I went there and met the members of the European Parliament, met vice presidents of the European Parliament, and most importantly, intercommittee members and the chairman of International Trade Committee in Europe. And one thing every member of Parliament reminded me, Mr. Sarwar, you should know that your friends from United Kingdom are no longer in European Union. So you have a difficult task. You have a huge challenge to have this status maintained. But I'm very pleased we were able to convince them, and I'm very grateful to Lord Hammond that he has assured me that the GSP plus status, whatever the benefit is, will continue till 2023 and beyond. And in fact, they were very kind to tell me this afternoon that probably he will do more than GSP plus status for the exporters in Pakistan. Thank you.
Great, sir.
And I was for a couple of weeks in United Kingdom, and you'll be surprised that I met more than 120 parliamentarians in 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in the House of Commons. And most of them, of course, were my colleagues and friends. I met cabinet ministers, I met opposition leaders, I met leaders of all the political parties. So they were very good meeting, very successful meeting. And my main reason to visit was to update the British parliamentarians and politicians about Afghanistan, because Afghanistan is a big, big issue for Pakistan and for the entire world. And I explained this to the members of European Parliament in Brussels, and I explained to our friends in United Kingdom that is a huge challenge. And Pakistan wants peace and stability in Afghanistan. And we have a 3-pronged strategy there. Number 1, we want peace and stable Afghanistan. Number 2, we want that the government of Taliban in Afghanistan must be inclusive, and they should respect for the human rights, for women, for children, for minorities, and most importantly, all those women should be allowed to go to their job, and they should be allowed to go to schools and universities for their education. And thirdly, we want international community to understand that there is going to be a huge humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan if the international community did not act now. Because Afghanistan government cannot afford to pay even the salaries of the civil servants for the last 4 or 5 months. And unfortunately, if we did not give our full support to the Afghan people, then there is going to be chaos there will be hunger there will be disease there, and a lot of people will die with hunger because half of the people in Afghanistan don't have access to food. There is a shortage of food in Afghanistan. So it's very important that our support for Afghanistan on humanitarian ground should be unconditional. And I hope, Lord Hammond, since you are very influential in British politics and you're close to Boris Johnson, you will join us in our campaign to help the people in Afghanistan who have suffered over the last 40 years with wars. And the last thing, Lord Hammond, I want to tell you, that's what I told the politicians there, that you have to look into the history. In 2001, when Britain and Europe and America decided to attack Afghanistan, I was a member of House of Commons that time. I opposed that war because I genuinely believed that time war is not the solution. War is never the solution. And one thing else which I tried to tell them, they are unbeatable. And who knows more than Britishers that they are unbeatable? They conquered half of the world. And people used to say, sun never set on British soil. Suraj gharoob nahi hota tha. Even America pe inka kabza tha. So they tried. They conquered Punjab, they conquered Bangladesh, they conquered a subcontinent, but they could not conquer Afghanistan. And there was a tragedy at one stage when they tried to take over Afghanistan, that 18,000 people were killed. 18,000 people were killed. Their officers, army people, and the people who were their supporters and all this. And only one doctor who escaped from Afghanistan. That's their history. In 1979, Russia invaded Afghanistan. They fought for 10 years, mighty force. They could not beat them. They could not beat them. They had to withdraw. And then 20 years, whole of Europe, America, everybody, with their mighty superpowers, most sophisticated weapons. Unfortunately, they have to withdraw from Afghanistan as well. That's their culture, that's their history. They walk with rifle, they die with rifle. So we have to deal with them politically. And I think it's an opportunity. There was the opportunity when Russia ended their occupation. That was the opportunity that time. If Americans would not abandon all these armed groups who were fighting against Russians, probably the situation would be different. And now this is another chance that we should use the policy of carrot and stick. Yes, they must meet international obligations, but at the same time, we must realize that alternative is going to be worse. If the Taliban regime collapses, then there is Daesh working there, there is ISIS working there, Islamic State is working there, there is the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is working there, then the Balochistan Liberation Army is working there, and then there will be a huge problem for Pakistan and for the entire world. So please take interest to resolve this problem, because I know that United Kingdom has very close ties with United States of America, and I think together we can work on to bring peace and stability in Afghanistan. Thank you very much for your visit, and I must mention to my superstar here, Naveed and Avansa, who are accompanying Lord Hammond. Naveed is a very clever man, and in fact I have offered him a job with me at the Governor House, but he says he is more loyal with Britain than with Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Governor Sahab, thank you so much for inviting us over here. And despite your best attempts to poach my colleague Naveed, I know he is a man of incredible loyalty. I don't know if it's all Pashtuns or if it's just him, but he's a man of incredible loyalty, and when he gives his word, he keeps it. So thank you for inviting me here. You, as you say, you were in the House of Commons, and you came back, and everyone greeted you like an old friend, because I don't need to tell you, you had friends on both sides of the aisle. Everybody remembered you and everybody admired you. And so when you told me that I had to come to Punjab, I had no option but to agree. It's not that you don't disagree with me. You just pull out your diary and you find a suitable date. And I'm very, very glad that I've come at this time. First of all, this is of course a rather auspicious year. This year, 2022, is the 75th anniversary of the birth of Pakistan. It's now reached an age where we have a certain maturity and a certain perspective. If by 75 we don't feel we have a sense of perspective, I don't think we've lived our lives properly. The circumstances of Pakistan's birth were very different. It was a bloody and awkward moment. Terrible refugee crisis. A lot of people wondered whether the infant state would survive at all. But here we are, 75 years on, this country becoming more prosperous, more populous, more confident, more influential in the world. And we've been through a great deal together, Pakistan and the UK. When, during those bloody birth pangs, when Mohammad Ali Jinnah spoke about the philosophy on which the new state would be founded, he said, our Islamic principles will lead us to support the rule of law and democracy and religious pluralism and rights for everyone. And of course, people from all parts of Pakistan have taken up arms in defense of those values. 400,000 Muslims from British India in the First World War, nearly 1 million in the Second World War, volunteered, all of them choosing, making a personal decision to enlist. There was no conscription because they believed that a law-based system was better than the alternative. So of course, we can never be indifferent to the fate of this country. We've been through too much together. Though it's auspicious timing in another way. As you say, I'm a member of the Board of Trade. It's an auspicious year for us as well. It's our 400th anniversary of the Board of Trade. We were much older than the Cabinet or any of the other institutions of the UK government. Now that Britain has left the European Union, we have the right to make our own trade deal. And now I've been working very hard to ensure, as the Governor says, that we keep our GSP plus status. But I don't believe that that should be the limits of our ambition. I think that there are ways in which we can go further, open our markets more, and have a deeper, more comprehensive commercial arrangement. By the way, not as a favour to Pakistan, right? The reason that I would like us to buy cheaper textiles and garments from this country is not as a favour to the producers. They may be incidental beneficiaries. It's really a favour to us. It's a favour to ourselves, which happens also to benefit the producers here in Pakistan. That's the wonderful thing about free trade. There are no losers. Everybody wins. But although we tend to think, one thing I've learned in trade, everybody thinks about the older industries, textiles, agriculture, important stuff. But if we think about what the world our children and grandchildren are going to grow up into, the bigger opportunities are going to be in other sectors, in services, in data, in software. And here there are immense opportunities for a country like this one, if we can remove any remaining obstacles to allow people who have IT backgrounds to work in the UK without needing to leave home. And again, we're not doing that as a favour, we're doing it as a favour to ourselves, but it enriches everybody. So I hope that we can use this 75th anniversary, this commemoration of what we've been through, to have deeper and closer economic ties. We have, if you like, the strongest and most powerful tie of all, which is people. We have depending how you measure it, 1.2, 1.4, 1.5 million British people of Pakistani origin. An enterprising, prosperous, and valued community. Not all of them have done as well as the Governor. They haven't all ended up serving in politics in two countries. But it's a tremendous success story of people who often arrive with nothing and are now among our most successful and valued citizens. So when we think about that, the level of trade between our two countries is still far too small. The level of investment is still little. We could be doing much more than we've done so far. Pakistan, I believe, is the biggest recipient of British overseas aid. Why is it not a big recipient of British investment? What are the obstacles? How do we identify them? How can we remove them? So I've very much enjoyed meeting your federal ministerial colleagues. I very much enjoyed seeing something of this wonderful country. And I'm looking forward tomorrow to seeing something of this wonderful province, because I've heard so much about it from its patriotic governor, who is of course a great advocate for it on every continent and in every archipelago. But whatever happens, if we haven't ended this year of 2022 with a deeper and more prosperous relationship than we began it, then I don't think we're doing our jobs very well as politicians. So gentlemen, thank you all for taking the time to join us. Governor Saab, thank you very much for taking the time to invite me, and thank you to Nasser and Naveed for joining me, to Rabia for organising everything. I look forward to spending more time here soon. Pakistan Zindabad.